I just want to close our session today with a few thoughts. I want to give some thanks, especially, of course, to everybody who's participated today, everyone who made today possible. But I also want to say just a little bit about where the New Economics Foundation goes next on the basis of the conversations that we've had today and what our vision is for how we can make a difference. And in a previous life, as some of you will know, I was a speechwriter. And my boss always used to say when I sat down with a pen, we need a rubric. And I'd say, what's a rubric? And he says, well, you know, it's 3 points. You need 3 points. And I said, well, why do you need 3 points? He said, well, that's how you structure an argument. You have 3 points. And I always thought at the time that this was kind of ridiculous and, you know, very constraining. And why couldn't you have 4 points or 2 points or 6? Or why couldn't you tell a story? But after you work for someone for long enough, you end up thinking that you have to have 3 points. And as everyone who is from New Economics Foundation here will know, I can't do anything now other than have 3 points. So I'm going to end today with 3 points that I think that the New Economics Foundation cares about and what I think we might take from the conversations we've had today. Point 1, this is an urgent moment. This is not a normal moment in our history where we're facing a battle for social justice and to try to improve situations. It's a moment of real potential crisis where things can go terribly, terribly badly wrong for millions of people. That's in part about the Brexit debate. It's in part about this systemic failure we have in the economic system. It's in part the threat and the challenge to our environment. And it's in part, and I think we must say this louder than ever at the moment, it's in part what happens to a country which is divided between those people who've lived here for a long, long time and those who've migrated here more recently. It's an absolutely crisis moment. It's an urgent moment, and that demands a different kind of work from us all than we usually give. It demands a speed to our action, a determination to our work, and a real commitment to do things which might otherwise be difficult. That's my first point, the urgency of now. The second point, and Andy has spoken extraordinarily well to this in his remarks, as has other people through the day, is that the urgency is compounded. It's made worse by the fact that the old mechanisms of change don't work anymore. Because in other urgent moments in our past, we've looked to the established authorities of Westminster and Whitehall, and we've asked for change to emanate from there. And of course, policy still matters. And of course, government still matters. And of course, civil service expertise still matters. But everything we know about what's going on in our country today tells us that the fundamental answers aren't going to begin from those places. You'll have probably heard me say this many times today, but Unbound Philanthropy very generously funded some polling for us of those who voted Remain in the election, in the referendum. And only a quarter of those voters thought that politicians listened to people like them. And that's the Remain voters. Those were meant to be the people doing well out of the status quo. And a quarter of them thought that politicians listened to them, which means that 3/4 didn't. And then you put on all the Leave voters on top of that, and you realise how deep the crisis is in the respect that people hold our established authorities. That doesn't mean abandoning those authorities, but it does mean this. There's no point being a think tank anymore that writes a report, prints it out, hurries down to Portcullis House and hopes to have a meeting with a relevant minister or shadow minister or member of the Green Party, member of the Liberal Democrats. That is not the primary mechanism for change in this crisis that we face. The primary mechanism for change is working out who out there is rooted in the community who actually can start this process going now. Be that a process of welcoming refugees into our communities, be it a process of community economic regeneration, be it a union that's trying to mobilise or organise in a new way, be it a newly elected mayor trying to think about ways of pushing the boundaries of the authority that he or she has within that situation. So the whole model of what it means to be a think tank has changed in this crisis, and we need to find ways of connecting with, writing those reports still, doing that research still, but taking that to a very, very different audience that we're used to taking it to. And that has been, for me, one of the most important things of today, is forging those relationships and forging those partnerships. So that's my second point. My third point, my final point, is that we don't just know that this is a crisis, and we don't just know that we need to find new partners for change, but we also know, and that's what's, again, come out of today so strongly, what kind of change we're looking for. Because we're not any longer looking for the change that just puts a little bit of extra cash in somebody's bank balance, even though that may be incredibly important. We're looking for a change which is empowering from the start. because people genuinely do feel as if they're not in control of their own lives anymore, their own communities anymore, their own destiny anymore, and they're looking for change which will turn that around, which will give them a sense that they are agents of their own futures, that they have a chance to feel proud in the work that they do, shaping their own community, making sure that their high streets aren't just full of chicken shops and betting agents, that they want to be active participants in this process. So the change people are looking for is a change that really puts them in control. And today we published our agenda for change, Really Take Control, which lists out a series of interventions that we could make if we had the right partners to begin to turn things around for people right now. You could break up the Royal Bank of Scotland and create local banks, which means that local businesses could get the funding that they need to really have a chance to set themselves up. You could do that right now if we wanted. The government owns RBS. We can begin to create new technologies which enable workers more effectively to organise, like those Deliveroo workers we saw this morning, so that they don't have a sense of isolation and individualism anymore, but that they can use an app, wouldn't that be an irony, to contact each other, to organise their campaign, to make sure that they can have a strong sense of collective power. We could start to do that tomorrow if we wanted. In the housing field, we know that there's a vast amount of public land out there which councils are sitting on, waiting for their moment to secretly sell it off so they can pocket the cash. We can do something right now about that. We can map that public land, we can work out where it is, and we can partner with organisations who are campaigners to demand that some of that land be put aside for affordable housing. That won't transform the entire housing system overnight, but it will mean that we begin to make a difference. Now, those are the kinds of policy initiatives that we can begin to argue for. We can't bring them about ourselves. We can only bring them about in partnership with people who are in this room today. And we won't believe that any of those individually is going to transform this moment of crisis to a moment of huge opportunity. It won't. But it is an incremental process. We will edge ourselves out of this broken, desperate, unfair, unsustainable old economy, and we'll move towards a sustainable and just economy that really puts people in control when we forge new coalitions with each other to demand change. Now, I'm a bit of a romantic, a sentimentalist at heart. I'm from South Wales, which means you either do melancholy or you do romance. So let me end with romance, which is I really believe that the New Economics Foundation can become an organisation unlike any other in this country before, which is a think tank which is genuinely people-powered, which has an opportunity to forge change now, but not just change now, change that sets us on the path to creating an entirely new economic system. Now that sounds to many people here, I know they're going to say that it's too ambitious. You want to do both democracy and systemic change. You want to be out there in all parts of the country giving your policy advice to community groups and campaigning groups and trade unions and refugee settlement groups, and that's just too much. It's much easier to stay in Vauxhall, work on your computer and run down to Portcullis when it isn't raining too hard. But I genuinely believe it's possible, and I believe it's possible for two reasons. That's not three, it's two. I believe it's possible for two reasons. First of all, because we have the most amazing staff in our organisation who are full of passion, who are full of determination, who are full of the very, very best research ideas and are desperate for those ideas to be put to use by agents for change around the country. That's the first reason. But the second reason is that we've brought all of you together today and many other people who've joined us and who've had to head off home. That means that we are able to convene a movement that together can bring about change. We've had academics here, we've had community workers here, we've had trade unionists here, we've had people trying to create trade unions, we've had politicians from all the major political parties, we've had philanthropists, we've had funders, we've had people who've never come to a meeting like this before and who have said that they've enjoyed a conversation in the corridor more than anything they've heard in the room. That is a unique thing to be able to pull together. We are a movement. We can move away from this old economy and we can build a new economy in which people feel they really have taken control. Thank you very much for being here.